drives it to right. This one's on a line to the warning track to the wall. It's gone. Oh, and Robbie Big Fly has number one. A 3-run home run for Rob Calabrese. In the season of first, the Wisconsin Rapids Rafters are officially your Northwoods League South Division first half champions. Welcome aboard Rafters Pregame as you're joined in the Whitterfield press box by Cooper Perkins and Sam Jellinek for another edition of Rafters Baseball. It's the 70th game of the season. We have first pitch at 7:05 p.m. And Sam, how are you?
Any day with Rafters Baseball is a good day in my books, Cooper.
Well, as we look at last night's ballgame, the Rafters won their 8th consecutive matchup. They took it 9-2 over the Kalamazoo Growlers as at the final stretch of the season, this club is playing their best baseball of the year.
Yeah, and for the Rafters, you want to be playing your best baseball going into the playoffs. It's usually said that the hot team going into the playoffs is the one that you usually don't want to face and the team that usually ends up winning the championship. So if the Rafters can, A, be the best team in the league throughout the season and then go into the playoffs as the hottest team, I don't know what can stop them.
What you look in the major league ranks at a team like the St. Louis Cardinals, who have done it before, the Florida Marlins, who have done it before, and come in as the wild card team and gone on to win the World Series. The Rafters are a different breed. They're the guaranteed first seed. They clinched it last night with a win and a Madison Mallards loss. They clinched home field advantage through the South Division playoffs, so they are guaranteed the number one seed. Still in quest of possibly having home field advantage regardless of opponent in any round, including the Summer Collegiate World Series. But still some time to go with that, just a game lead on the St. Cloud Rocks. Let's get into the nuts and bolts, though, of this winning streak. They've won 8 straight. It ties the franchise record 8 in a row back in June of 2012. A chance tonight to break that franchise record and match the longest win streak in the league this season, as St. Cloud had a 9-game winning streak earlier this year. But for the Rafters, where has this come from? They've been so consistent, 4 wins and a loss, 3 wins and a loss all season long, so it's amounted to tremendous success over the long haul, but they haven't been streaky until recently.
It's really been for the Rafters about minimizing mistakes. A lot of these games that they played, really except for last night, on the defensive side of the ball, they've been very solid. They haven't been giving their opponents too many extra outs, and when they're at the plate, when they have been given extra outs by the opponent, they've been taking advantage of them.
I think a big part, too, is that as we come down the final stretch of the season, there is so much roster turnover around the league because of players going back to school, going home, injuries, you name it. There's a lot of turnover. With that in mind, I think the Rafters have done the best job in the league of establishing a very firm baseline of solid play and then maintaining that despite faces coming in and going out. And as they've remained consistent, I think the rest of the league has begun to sink. We saw that last night with Kalamazoo. We didn't see them throw a pitch 85 miles per hour.
Yeah, it was a real poor pitching performance from them. Jay Smith he only was able to pitch 1 inning, and then their bullpen they did a solid job just giving them innings and getting the game to the end.
But it was nothing special. You know, they didn't do anything outstanding. It looked as though the Rafters were pretty comfortable. A 6-run lead in the first inning. They attacked Jay Smith, sent 12 men to the plate. After that, the game had really written itself. There wasn't a whole lot of doubt which way things were going. Gareth Stroh was dynamite. He went 6 innings and struck out a season-high 9. When those two things line up and you have early scoring and quality pitching, it's tough to lose.
Yeah, for the Rafters, they did everything that they could have hoped to in the early parts of that game. They got a lead going early. Gareth Stroh got into a real good groove in the early going, and they just had control of this game from the get-go.
Well, with the win last night, the Rafters continue to chug along towards the playoffs and also keep their hopes alive for 50 victories. They need to go just 3-1 in the last 4 games of the year. They'd become the 4th team in the 50-win club. They still have a shot to potentially tie the league record of 51 wins in a single season, that being the Waterloo Bucks a couple of years back in 2013. But when you really consider it, that's not all that important of a benchmark. This team has made their living by being consistent. They happen to be on a win streak now. They're a tough draw for anyone, but you look at some of the possibilities, and right now it looks as though it's going to be either Lakeshore or Green Bay. I don't know which one I like more or less, maybe.
Yeah, if you're looking at the matchup between who the Rafters would play, you don't really like Lakeshore because of the potential of facing Marshall Kosowski. He's been dominant, one of the best pitcher in the Northwoods League this year. So if you were to draw him, it would be a little tough. But so far this year, the Rafters have been able to beat him. As for the Green Bay Bullfrogs, they've been a hot team in the second half, a team that struggled at the end of the first. And when it comes down to playoffs in a one-game scenario, you never know what can happen.
Well, if the season ended tonight, the Raptors would be playing the Lakeshore Chinooks in the first round of the playoffs. The Chinooks are 33-36. They have a one-game lead on the Green Bay Bullfrogs. So we'll be keeping an eye on that development the rest of the way and some scoreboard watching to see who that opponent will be, as the two of them have really separated at this point from the Rockford Rivets and Wisconsin Woodchucks. It'll be interesting to see how things play out. The Raptors have had more success against the Chinooks as a team, but in a Game 1 situation where you have Marshall Kozlowski throwing, it really opens the possibility for things to go a lot of different ways that you don't see with the law of large numbers in play over the course of a full season.
Yeah, and one thing that really works the Raptors' favor, like you said, how it's just one game, it's just 9 innings. The Raptors don't need to get too much out of their starting pitching.
Which is true, and they've shown that all year with the bullpen and how good that they've been. We'll see how they manage this doubleheader to try and keep that bullpen fresh.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The doubleheader is kind of a weird bit of scheduling for the Raptors, unfortunately. But hopefully what they can do is get some nice innings out of their starting pitching, be able to have Garrett Schilling, Blair Laxo, and John Jager ready and available come playoff time. And then that way, all you need is 5 innings out of a starting pitcher, and then once you get to the bullpen, it's basically game in hand.
Well, you're listening to Rafters Pregame on WFHR 1320 AM. For Sam Jellinek and Cooper Perkins, we'll take a quick timeout and come back in just a moment. We'll talk about tonight's ball game, our pitching matchup, and what to look for as we come up on first pitch at 7:05 p.m. live at Witter Field. Welcome back to Witter Field. Cooper Perkins and Sam Jellinek as we welcome you back aboard for Rafters Pregame. We're into the second half of our show as we come up on first pitch at 7:05 p.m. Tonight, the Kalamazoo Growlers for the 8th and final time this season. The Raptors 5-2 against the Growlers, a win last night. Tonight, Jake Repovich and Grant Wolfram, a couple of left-handers on the mound. Sam, what can you tell me about this pitching matchup?
Well, for the Raptors, Repovich is going to be on the mound, like you said. It'll be his first start at home, which will be very interesting to see because how the Witterfield faithful will be able to back him up and just how he fares playing here at Witterfield instead of being out on the road. He's a guy, left-handed arm, soft tosser, but what he does is he gets ground balls. That's all he has to do. And as long as the defense is able to play very well behind him, he will have a very successful night.
Well, for Jake Repovich, you mentioned it in passing. It will be his first start at Witter Field this summer. For some reason, a bit of a scheduling anomaly has had it line up so that every start that he's made to this point has come away from Witter Field. So he'll get his first taste of the home crowd while being on the mound, and he'll look to have a little bit more help behind him with both the defense and the lineup this year. There have been instances where there have been quite a few shortcomings in the defensive end, more unearned runs than I'm sure Repovich would like to have on his record. Also, not a lot of run support, just 3.86 runs per game for a lineup that's scoring almost 6 per game on this season. That's a pretty big deviation. And
if you're Repovich, you just got to look past it. You just got to look at your job, what he's doing on the mound, and say, if I can go out there and give the team quality innings, I do my part. If they do theirs, great. If not, I just got to focus on what I can control.
I also think it's important to look at the lineup that he'll be facing. It won't be the same that the Raptors saw last night in all likelihood. There are still a couple of faces that were on the bench that are formidable bats. You're thinking of Connor Kopak and Nick Hutchins, a couple of guys who have made their mark in the Northwoods League. Hutchins in the conversation to be the catcher of the year. Kopak, of course, broke the record for the most stolen bases in a Northwoods League single season. He has 47 in 58 tries. So it gives a little bit more firepower to the Kalamazoo Growlers. With Repovich on the mound, he's going to attack the same lineup that he saw last night and the remnants that carry over into tonight, but there will be a little bit more support from this Kalamazoo team to try and resist.
And it's not very often that you can add 2 all-star caliber players into the lineup like that after sitting them. So Repovich will have to go through them, and what he can take a little solace in knowing is that outside of them, the Kalamazoo offense was pretty feeble last night. If he can follow the same game plan that Gareth Stroh laid out, he should have a lot of success.
Well, he's also going to be going up against a fellow left-hander, Grant Wolfram, who has pitched well for the Growlers this season. He's 2-3 with a 3.83 ERA, but for Grant Wolfram, he's only pitched against the Raptors once. That was a brief 1-inning relief appearance. He didn't give up any runs, but walked a couple and had a few strikeouts. So for Wolfram, he gets his first real look at the Raptors as an order rather than just kind of in passing. It'll be interesting to see how he fares. This is a Raptors team that has hit very well against left-handed pitching this season, better than they have against right-handed tossing, north of 290 as a club. So they're going to be in a position where these bats are still here for the Raptors. They're still scoring runs, and tonight might be another night where they throw up a few more.
And the only real knock on Wolfram outside of, or like you said, his ERA so far this year is very solid at 3.5. The one knock on him, however, is that he hasn't worked very deep into ball games. Only once so far this year has he been able to work more than 5 innings in a game. And after the Kalamazoo bullpen was taxed a little bit last night, if he can't get very deep into the game, Kalamazoo will be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and it's a situation where Kalamazoo is already thin on arms and thin on quality arms, quite honestly. Not a whole lot of live arms in that bullpen right now. They did get a bit of relief last night from Zane Gonzalez, who went 5 innings out of the bullpen, but it's still taxing to have to throw 7 innings in relief after your starter only gives you 1, and that's exactly what they dealt with last night. That just about does it for us here on Rafters Pregame. When we come back from the next commercial break, it'll be time for First Pitch here on WFHR 1320 AM.